I don't think the Browns' decision with this quarterback situation has anything to do with what Dillon Gabriel does today. I think Dillon Gabriel is going to be here because they used a third-round pick on him, and Andrew Berry ain't parting ways with the guy that quickly who he took in the third round.
That's a fact.
I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be here because, A, he's earned it, and B, again, Andrew Berry picked.
That's a fact.
Well, and like you can make the case, other teams might be like, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. Like, if that guy doesn't make the team.
DTR was a 5th round pick.
For example, the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
The Eagles roster is so damn good. You might just addition by subtraction. You might not have room for like a 6th round pick in the same year that you took him, or a 5th round pick in the same year that you took him. You might try to practice squad that guy, but there's no way Shedeur Sanders is probably going to make it back to the practice squad. So even if you wanted to cut him, I'm not saying they should because I think he proved he's good. But they're not getting rid of him. The rookies are going to be here in my mind. The odd man out has always been for me, Kenny Pickett. But here's the problem. I think Kenny Pickett's going to be. I'm just going to say this. I have changed my tune on the keeping 4 quarterbacks thing. I think they are without question keeping 4 quarterbacks at this juncture, largely because even if they wanted, like, here's the other part of this. Like, even if they wanted to even if Dylan Ball's out today and they're like, all right, we feel good about our quarterback situation without Pickett, can you really trade Kenny Pickett right now? What's the trade value on Kenny Pickett? You're not going to get anything for a guy that's dealing with a hamstring issue right now. And that's the bit. And I'm not. And in a normal circumstance, if they just signed Kenny Pickett off the street, it might be like, all right, fine, we'll just cut him, whatever. But they traded for him. Like they still traded draft capital for this guy. So I don't think they're going to be inclined to just be like, he didn't really get to do anything in camp. Let's just cut him and move on. If they can't find a trade package or they can't find a trade partner, I think they keep him and they just hope he gets healthy. And then maybe a trade, comes to fruition later once he's able to be traded for something valuable.
I think that's how he stays here. I am a person that believes, per our conversations that we've had off the record, I think that hamstring is more real than what people are.
Pickett's? I think Pickett's is definitely real. He's been getting a lot of treatment on it.
So that's my point. I think Pickett's hamstring is real, and this is how the Browns are going to keep 4 quarterbacks. I actually agree with you. I can't believe this, but I agree with you. They're going to find a way to IR Kenny probably like for the first 4 weeks of the season. And so I think that'll be the way that, I can IR Kenny, I keep 4 quarterbacks, but I'll also create an open roster spot as well.
So to do that, by the way, they have to keep him on the 53 first. They can't put him on the IR before they cut the roster down.
Exactly.
And then they could IR if they wanted to.
I think that's how they'll get it done. But, Nelson had mentioned, the soft tissue injuries is frustrating because you can't get a real evaluation of the quarterbacks. And it's funny because shout out to Meredith. I was talking to Meredith in the other studio during the break. Larry Jackson is the Cleveland Browns director of strength and conditioning. And Larry, listen, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't really got all the information, but all us as fans know is people are popping up very early with these soft tissue injuries. So maybe we need to get back to the drawing board and kind of reconstruct what our plan is, or this can just be simply one of those situations like, hey, this is football, people get hurt, but that's just something to point out.
This is not the first year, by the way, that the Browns medical team, and they changed a lot of the training staff out. That was something they did this offseason. Larry's been there for, I think this is his 5th year with the Browns, so he's still sticking around. But you're right, these soft tissue things have been pretty prominent with this team, and just injuries in general have been prominent with this team. So we'll see. But yeah, I think they're keeping 4 quarterbacks. That's my main point. And this next segment is going to be one that you're going to want to go back and listen to because our first guest of the day knows what he's talking about when it comes to football, when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. I spent 14 hours in the car with him thereabouts. And it wasn't enough time. We need to talk more football. So Lance Reisland, Cleveland.com, and our very own here at 92 to the Fan joins the show.
Yeah, the new
That's right.
Fangate Tailgate, the Fan Tailgate show host, Lance. What's up, bro?
Morning, gentlemen. How are you? Happy Saturday morning.
Happy Saturday. Is school back in for you?
I'll start next week. Next Tuesday, we get rolling.
Lance, how much Penn State creamer ice cream have you eaten since we got home?
So I absolutely had the raspberry tort. I had to. My family has tried them all, so I came home a hero with many pints of ice cream for the family.
Came
as
home
did
a
you.
hero.
Yeah, I told you my wife on Friday morning, she was getting ready for work, and I kind of rolled over in bed and was like, "Hey, there's a surprise for you." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Just look in the freezer." And then so then she texts me. She's like, "Oh, you got Lance to go?" And I was like, "Lance wanted to go." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Yeah, it's a nice little detour. We'll pick up some ice cream." So that was good. But yeah,
I got one more question.
Absolutely.
Off. So we want to just wish Lance well, because covering the Browns this year, it can be a little stressful. We know fans is crazy, but you also got to deal with students, man. So good luck to you this school year from a teacher standpoint. A lot of you all don't really get that. Parents, we just be ready to send our kids back to school. Take y'all asses to school. Get out my refrigerator. Cut them lights out. But no, seriously, man. I hope you have a great school year.
I appreciate that very much, man. I appreciate it very, very much.
So, Lance, as we get ready for this preseason game, we obviously saw some things down in Philly this week. But I want to start with the topic du jour. We're all assuming Dylan Gabriel is going to start today. It certainly feels like it's trending that direction. Specific to Dylan, what do you need to see today from him? A guy that you've obviously said you think is a good fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense and whatnot, to continue building confidence that he can potentially be something for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, the expectations I think on Shedeur and him, I think they have to be higher. I think they should hold themselves to a higher expectation. The initial we want the operation to be good. These guys are pros. You'd hope they get that. And I thought Shedeur did a really good job of taking advantage of a situation, right? So you get an opportunity in football, you take advantage of it. You'd like to see Dylan do the same thing. So for me, as a former coach, I'd like to see the operation, obviously. I'd like to see them get in and out of formations, in and out of motions. I'd like to see him seeing a clear window. I'd also like to see him when he's processing, a lot of with his height, if he can get into his processing like he did in college, that allows him to know where he's going to find those lanes, because he's been a guy who's been undersized his whole life. So he's had to work that. And I think a lot of his, batted balls come with, he's still going through the process of learning where people are going to be open in this new scheme. Hopefully that improves. What I would like to see is him play really, really well, and that create more competition within that room. His success or failure should have nothing to do with Shedeur, and it should go the other way. They should be really kind of pushing themselves, and I think that would help them both. And it's one of those things. It's Shedeur got an opportunity. Now you got to go out and produce and the operation, but can you make that play when it's presented to you? Can you make sure you protect the football? Can you end every drive in a kick? This is not an offense that's it's quarterback based. This is a scheme based offense. So can they get it rolling? And kind of like what Shedeur did and kind of what Flacco did those last two sessions you and I watched, in Philly. So just kind of see the operation, the pace to tempo, and just kind of that body language, that energy, that sense of urgency that this, 3-win team needs to have.
Lance, brand new season, brand new OC, brand new quarterback coach. We know how things have been in Cleveland over the years. Do you see a difference this year with, as far as how they are preparing quarterbacks and just basically developing quarterbacks, as far as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach compared to seasons past?
Well, I think Kevin Stefanski and staff should get a great, kudos to them. For example, with Shedeur getting into his first start, I thought they did a great job of setting him up for success, getting him to where he's comfortable. You heard him say in his pressers, I felt very good, very confident. That's a credit to coaching, where he's not only allowing him to be coached, but he's being coached hard, so he understands what he's doing with the football. Me and Spencer were watching the first day especially, and they did it the second day as well. The thing that I think that we thought was going to happen with Dorsey is all this movement. And what this movement does, it really creates a clear picture for these quarterbacks. So since, with Tommy Rees coming in, that's the one thing I see early on. Obviously, you're getting wide zone, you're getting levels, you're getting a lot of stuff that Kevin loves to run. But this motion that they're adding right now, and it seems like they're sticking to it, that's going to really create a clear picture for these quarterbacks, allowing them to kind of get to the open receiver when they need to. When you see a veteran like Flacco with the movement, you see how easy it can become for him, because he knows where the windows are going to be. So that's been the biggest difference for me. It's just been the pre-snap movement and motion to kind of create that clear picture for whoever's at quarterback.
Lance Reisland, Cleveland.com, and our very own here at 92.3 The Fan. You'll hear him on Sundays for the tailgate, during the tailgate show. Very much excited to be working alongside him throughout the season. Lance, there's been a lot, obviously, of smoke around this story of Isaiah Bond joining the fold here. Sounds like via your colleague, Mary Kay Cabot at Cleveland.com, that he's flying to Cleveland tonight. And we'll talk about some contract stuff and get potentially signed and all that. Now, I'm not asking you to speculate on any of that stuff, but from just an on-the-field standpoint, what does he bring to the table? How does he fit with the Cleveland Browns? And how do you maybe see them trying to use him if he makes this team, which at this point is still up in the air because he's got to sort of get himself quickly up to speed here before roster cutdown day at the end of the month?
Well, I think first of all, you're getting raw speed, so you're going to be able to get that vertical and horizontal stretch across the field, which I think is very important. Again, motions, obviously just blowing off the top if he's running the vertical, just trying to create clear windows and levels for Kevin Stefanski's offense. He's a guy who has really, really good raw ability. He's really good. He can release. He can catch at the catch point. He's good run after catch. He has elite football speed. He's going to have to work on the details, right? He's a guy who did a lot for Golden getting him open at Texas. So I think the big thing for him is come in and don't overuse it first, right? If he's a guy who can really run whatever that is, clear it, run some hitches, run some slants, keep it very simple so he can play fast because that speed goes away if you're thinking. So I would very much like to do with the quarterbacks. I expect them to use his speed to blow the top off a little bit, create some windows, and then slowly but surely just kind of make sure that he's playing fast because that's his number one trait right now as he gets to Cleveland. He can really run, and he's not only is he track fast, but he's football fast, which means he can get in and out of things. He can get through traffic. He's going to have to work on the details of being a receiver, which comes with being a pro. But if you ask me how he makes this team, I think it's early on is using that speed and keeping it simple for him so he can just use that raw athletic ability without thinking too much as he's learning the offense.
How quickly do we see him be used on a classic Kevin Stefanski end around play at practice? You think?
It'll be quick. I'm going to say as soon as he gets here, probably the walkthrough. No, I'm obviously those would be things. Once again though, those would be things he could probably That's funny, but like those are kind of the things, right? Like a package, right? You're gonna get end around, you're gonna get a hitch, you're gonna get a vertical. They might have some one-word tag words for him where they're gonna say, here's 6 to 8 plays we're gonna give you, and here's what we expect you on these plays. There's football plays, and you and I were talking all the way home, Spencer, like that you run at every level. So even though if it's different terminology, a levels concept is a levels concept, or a high-low is a high-low. So he's got to learn the terminology. But I expect him just to kind of be in some packages and just try to create some touches, maybe some bubble screens, maybe some quick screens, just trying to use his speed. Because like I said, that's his number one asset right now. It's his ability to run and ability to run on the football field, which is different for some. Some people are track fast. Bond's a football fast guy too.
Let's talk about Quinshon Judkins for a little bit. We all know what took place this week as his situation started to progress towards him kind of getting back within the Cleveland Browns organization. Lance, how soon do you think it is before we actually see Quinshon Judkins on the practice field? And just seeing how the legal things kind of played itself out, do you still anticipate him being suspended by the league?
Well, it's interesting. The stuff that happens with these guys, the impulsive decisions they make, and obviously I'm a little bit older, so I do think obviously he's got to take care of himself first, and you got to make sure that you're doing everything that's right for you and your family. And if you have some things that you need to take care of personally, you need to make sure you do that. As a football player, he's a guy that I think can really help the Browns in terms of what they're trying to do offensively and trying to get to, 2nd 5, I guess, is the best thing Quinshon Judkins can do. But when you think about things that happen outside of football, those guys, you want to make sure those guys are available. And, your best ability is availability, whether it's injury or off the field stuff. So I think for him, missing these multiple weeks because of off the field stuff is going to kind of dent this year and kind of stunt this year. So he's got to make sure that he takes care of himself off the field so that he can get on the field. And that sounds kind of redundant and kind of cliche, but that's the number one thing with these young guys. They got to get in and they got to practice. They got to make good decisions. They got to understand that they're under the microscope no matter where they're at and what they're doing. And I think a lot of people forget, obviously being a teacher, these are kids. And, if they need help with something off the field personally, they get the help. So hopefully professionally, you can kind of get to where you need to. But that'll only happen if you take care of yourself personally as well, and make sure that you take care of the things that you need to take care of if you do have some issues.
So that kind of just set up a perfect follow-up question for you, because you are a teacher, you are an educator, but you are also a father, you're a husband. You're somebody that really cares about the youth and care about kids, clearly, because this is the profession that you chose. What's your opinion of the Cleveland Browns being an organization that pride themselves on giving, people a second chance or another opportunity when most won't?
Well, I think it's important that, especially, first of all, you always look at kids are kids. And, I would never want anybody to judge me from 16 to 25, right? You make decisions and you're learning how to become an adult. I think the key is that kids need to have consequences, but kids don't need to have, don't need to hold a debt on them. You don't need, if a kid makes a mistake, help the kid, give the kid consequences for his actions, but that doesn't mean you have to dislike him. That doesn't mean you have to have this perceived notion of who he is. Kids are kids and they make mistakes. Now, obviously some mistakes are larger than others, but I think giving a kid a second chance, and then obviously when you get a second chance, you need to make sure that you're making good decisions too. So it's all about just making sure you're communicating and having the issue, not the person you're dealing with, be the problem, right? So I always wanted my kids to know that what they're doing is the issue, not them. Their actions are what causing my discipline with them. So you hope that, I'm a big believer in second chance, but then these guys got to take advantage of that and do the right thing when they're given that chance.
That's a bar, Lance. That's a parenting bar right there. Like what you did is the issue, not you. I love that, man.
Lance Reisland joining us on the fan hotline. I learned this week, Lance, that you are the guy that still has his TV on in the third and the fourth quarter of these preseason games, and you're just, eating your heart out watching what's going on. So I guess based off of what we saw in Philly, and then as we turn the pace of this preseason game, outside of the quarterback stuff, what else are you sort of looking for today? Or is there anybody specifically that you're going to have that I'll be paying attention to?
Well, it's funny you say that, right? The third and fourth quarters when everybody shuts it off. I just think the passion that those guys, that's their livelihood, right? So you got these young guys or maybe a couple of year veterans who are trying to make a team, and the effort and the passion that they play with as a football coach. If you want to see guys who are playing hard and trying to make a team, watching the third, fourth quarter. It's not always the best football, but if you like effort and energy, the third and fourth quarter are just amazing. I want to see, obviously offensive line. Everybody hasn't talked a ton about the offensive line, but I want to watch guys like Lucas and Whipner and Zach Zinter, right? You and I were talking about his feet. Are his feet getting back to where they were at Michigan? Lorenzo Thompson, I think, has done some good things. And then the defensive line, we know how deep that defensive line is, but now they have some pieces that they can actually put in against, different teams like Jawan Briggs and Ralph Holley. Those guys, lower bodies, can they be run stoppers if they need to? This Aiden Huntington, this kid who has just been active on special teams, how is he going to play when he's getting 30 to 40 reps? So it's that depth, right? And then, guys like Nathan Watson, is he going to be a guy who makes a team? There's a lot of guys. Okwara, he's had a really good camp, and can he be flexible inside now? And just kind of seeing the depth, and can they build depth in that defense? And then obviously that second level, with the linebackers and DBs, just building that depth. I think they feel pretty good about their ones. Obviously in the NFL, you got to build some depth. So that'll be what I'm watching. And once again, just the sense of urgency that you're coming off 3-14, everything matters. There is no it's just a preseason game or it's just third quarter. These guys should all be fighting for their jobs when you're not winning. And that's kind of what it's all about. Because you can say development, all that kind of stuff. You got to win football games. And that's the bottom line. So that's what I'll be, just the energy, passion, and some of those position battles for depth.
I'll ask you this about one particular player, a guy that stood out to me last week during his preseason game and just throughout seeing him in camp. Amani Marshall, the undrafted rookie out of App State. Talk about him. Have you liked from what you've seen, when you put your eyes on him?
Well, yeah, we were actually talking about a bunch of different guys, and he's had a great camp. Now, a couple of things he does is, first of all, if you're trying to help your quarterback, the best thing you can do for quarterback is get to 2nd and 5, because then you dictate as a coordinator and a quarterback what you can do, and you kind of limit what the defense does with the exotic blitzes and things like that. So that's the first thing. He's a big, thick kid, so he can really get you 2nd, 4. I've been impressed with his ability to bounce outside. He's run the wide zone. He's kind of run all the schemes that Kevin likes to run. And my initial thought is him in the red zone, right? Because if you're going to be a power team, you need that heavy back in the red zone. And then you really everybody talks about, which was a great touchdown pass from Shedeur Sanders, but that was a really good team play. And not only did Shedeur do a great job, but Amani Marshall was the key to that touchdown pass with his blitz pickup. Allowed Shedeur to slide to his right and then hit Caden Davis on that second dig for the touchdown. So very impressed with his size, very impressed with his ability to kind of run between the tackles. He's not a guy who will probably excite people with 30 and 40-yard runs, but I will tell you, I think he's a guy that can get you to 2nd, 4, 2nd, 5, 2nd, 6, which is really important for this offense. Would not be surprised at all if this guy makes a team. He's had a really, really good camp.
All right, Lance, we appreciate you as always, my man. Again, check him out if you haven't already over at cleveland.com. He does some tremendous stuff breaking down X's and O's and giving you some insight into football. You can also follow him on X at Lance Reisland. You know, I always appreciate your time, my man. I'm sure we'll be texting each other later, and look forward to connecting with you hopefully at practice this week.
Absolutely, guys. Great. Thanks for having me, and I'll talk to you guys soon.